Hi guys, how are you? I'm Pete and welcome back to Really Understandable Spanish. You might recall that we were talking before about patterns in Spanish. There are patterns in every language, we have them in English too. The patterns in Spanish are really important simply because they will facilitate, they'll help you to understand what's being said as much as to help you to say things, and that's really important. So as you're listening to things, if you know some patterns, you'll be expecting it. And when it comes, you'll recognize it. So you may recall before in part 1, this is part 2 of suffixes. You may recall in part 1 of suffixes that we talked about words ending in al, and how there are hundreds of words you already know in Spanish, which are the same or almost the same in Spanish. And then we went from that and took that al off what we called the stem. That's the main part of the word. So in English you might say, well, climb is one word. You could have a climber, climbing, you could have all sorts of things. So the stem plus al, and that gives you the adjective or the adverb, okay? So we also did the ending mente. Mente is the equivalent of our li. Okay? So fundamentalmente is fundamentally. Okay? Remember that. If you want to go back and look at that, it's important, because when a Spaniard's talking to you, as you start to listen, you'll start to hear the mente, you think, oh, I know, yeah. They just gradually sink into your mind. And also you can use it straight away to say, I want to say, this is sad. I want to say sadly. I want to say sadly. How do I say that? Sad is triste. Okay? Sad is triste. So, if we want to say sadly, we just find the stem, turn that into the female if you remember, and add mente. Tristemente no puedo. Tristemente no puedo ir. Sadly, I can't go. So it's a process that you can get in your head without having to learn every single word. And the last one we did was ida. Remember, D on the end of a word, drop it. Ida. Idas. Don't go totally silent. Do a sort of a dribbly z. Madrid. 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 Okay? So ida is the equivalent of our iti. Tranquilidad. I bet you can guess what that is straight away. Tranquility. Tranquilidad. Remember also that the Spanish are much closer to the original Latin that we learned our English from, most of it. So they use more traditional words. They actually do use things like tranquility a lot. So that's another clue to listening. Expect to hear those words. And if you don't know a word, think of the sort of slightly posh, older way to say things. How your grandfather might have said it in a slightly more formal way. So I'll give you a quick example of that. I am worried. We would say worried. But somebody well-educated many years ago, and still occasionally now, would use the Latin derivation. And the Latin derivation is preoccupied. I'm a little preoccupied. That means, formally, I'm worried. Guess what the Spanish is? Estoy preocupado. Estoy preocupado. I am worried. So all of these clues and patterns will come through as we gradually move further down this road. So that's where we were up to, and I've added bits to it. Let's add a bit more to it now, part 2, and let's just carry on and say, okay, so let's start off with a very simple word. The simple word is pan. El pan is bread. Okay? So, who makes the bread? The baker. Oh, I'll have to learn what the baker is. Well, yes, first time you will. That word, you can add adero to it. The important bit being ero. So el panadero is the baker. If the baker's female, it's panadera. Oh, does that happen all the time? Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's excellent. So, what's meat? La carne. La carne is meat. So I guess the person that does the meat, the butcher, would be carnero. Not quite. It's not maths, but it's very close. The butcher is carnicero. See the arrow on the end? So you now have another pattern. You now have a pattern that's there that will help you when you're listening and also help you to make them. Yeah. So the person that's doing it is most of the time called ero or era, depending on whether they're male or female. So tell me something. What does this person do then? Whoops. Excuse me. Scribbling away. Carpintero. Carpintero. Easy, eh? It's exactly that. It's the carpenter. We could put something you might guess at, a very common one again. Fontanero. Font. Font. Think of a church. What do they do in a font? It's full of water. So what do you think a fontanero does? Yeah, it's a plumber. So there you have a very simple pattern. A very simple suffix. There you go. It's really, really useful. Okay? Let's have a few more. What's your hair in, I haven't got any, but what's your hair in Spanish? It's el pelo. It's a very short word like pan, so you don't just put ero on the end because also there's a vowel at the end. What's a hairdresser? Let's assume that the hairdresser's female. La peluquero. La peluquero. Ero is the person doing it. I'm sorry, I've done the end, I'm thinking stupidly. La peluquera, obviously, because it's the female. But if it was a male hairdresser, el peluquero. So you can see, you can build on that. It's not maths, but it's pretty close. Because they're very close to the original Latin. And the original Latin, pure Latin, was very, very logical indeed. Okay, so that's ero and era. Okay? So, what about, where would the carpenter do his work? Well, he'd do it in a workshop, in a carpenter's workshop. Oh, right, okay. So what do you think this means? Carpin, there's the stem. Carpinteria. Carpinteria is carpentry. So it's both the skill, the doing of, and normally the place they do it. So if you want to know where there's a carpenter, you could say, remember that wonderful word, hay carpintería aquí. O busco. Busco, I look for, or necesito. Oops. I need carpentry. I need the carpenters. Where is it? Hay un carpintero. ¿En dónde está? Carpintería. Carpintería. So what's the butchery? Can you remember? We put carne and then we changed it a little bit because it's a very short one, so they changed it a bit. And we had carnicero is a butcher. Take the aero ending off and add that. You've got butchery. The place it's done and the action it's done. So what does this mean then? Peluquería. 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 Yeah, it's the hairdresser. Not the person, the hairdresser's place. The hairdresser is peluquero or peluquera, male or female. The place they do it and the process itself is peluquería. Peluquería is the hairdressers and hairdressing. So there's some really, really fundamental, straightforward, common things to be listening for when somebody is talking later on. But in the first place, you can say that's a really useful ending, isn't it? A really useful ending that you can use that a lot. Okay? Hopefully that helps you. Go through it and find some others. Think of some other things that you might want to say. Who does it or where's it done? See you next time.